All right. I think we're live. If anyone in the chat room can hear me, just push 1. All right, got a confirmation. Thank you for the confirmation. Welcome back to the Black Brain Trust. This is open chat number 87. Please hit the like button as you come in, share the video if possible, and hit that notification bell so you get all the updates from the Black Brain Trust. Also, there'll be a link in the chat for you to join. It's a Zoom link. Make sure your Zoom client is updated to the latest version before joining. All right, let me grab the link and then we can get started. If nobody joins, then I'll just peel up out of here. This should be relatively quick. Okay, let's pin that to the top real quick. All right, cool. All right, here we go. BGS, Black Gnostic Speaks, made a comment earlier today about 1.0. Now, I want to give the backstory on 1.0, okay, this whole 1.0 phenomenon that people are throwing around very loosely. In the manosphere, as we know it today, the Black manosphere, the Black social space where Black men congregate with each other, there was a lot of talk about founding fathers and people who created these social spaces. And so I decided to weigh in a few years ago about the history of Black male social spaces, that this manosphere, as we know it today, the congregation of Black men in these spaces did not start with these people, okay? There was a time when Black men were congregating with each other in this space that where that these people who think that they allegedly created this space, it existed before them. And so it wasn't to malign them, but it was to actually give some proper grounding as to what came before what became before them. And so what ended up happening was people took offense to it, as if you were slandering the space. But everybody who knows the history knows that this is true, that there were Black men here before you that were actually engaging in intellectual discussions. And so they asked for the evidence. This was on Art News Stalls maybe about a year or so ago, maybe about 9 months ago at best. And DC from the Code Breakers provided evidence from an old content creator that went by the name of Pink Elephant. Okay. DC from the Code Breakers played the clip. Everyone heard it. Only one person objected to it, and that was Black Gnostic Speaks. Okay. So the question wasn't whether or not the content was challenging Black women or what the level of discourse was. It was, did the content exist or did it not? DC from the Code Breakers provided the content. It was immediately rejected. Okay. Now I want to play this clip from earlier. Let me share my screen real quick. Okay. Let me know if you can see the screen. Push 1 in the chat if you can see the screen. Yeah, push one in the chat if you can see the screen. All right, cool. What you're looking at on screen is a comment from Don Calypso. Don Calypso came from a group within 1.0, as we know it, called BMV, Black Men Vent, okay? A young Don Calypso, okay, that was 13, 14 plus years ago that this stuff was going on. I remember it vividly, 2007, 2008. So look at the comment on screen. You probably can't see it if you're on your phone, but I'll read it out to you. Don Calypso makes a comment in BGS's chat, and BGS highlights it. It says, I don't have archived Manosphere 1.0 material at BGS anymore. Only material from this era is Blog Talk radio clips after the Black YouTube gender wars of 2008, 2009. Okay. Don Calypso is a lived experience of that era. Now, I want to play the clip so that you understand that what BGS is saying. Play this real quick.
Well, give me the Blog Talk, man, whatever you got. Give me the Blog Talk, whatever you have. Anyhow, let's get started. All right, my first clip, I was trying to figure out what clips were most vital because this is a very, very long, extensive piece. Okay, well, give me the blog. Learning my bass, man. It's been sitting collecting dust for like 5 years. Tango Alpha, what's going on? Oh, the apple for the teacher. Oh, ain't that nothing? The esteemed, our elder esteemed doctor emeritus in the building, Dr. T. Hassan Johnson, PhD, motherfucker. Okay. Rashawn, what's happening? Mad Zulu, what's happening? Afro, what's going on? Little Rocks, and what else we got? Black Lion. All right, let me go ahead and get started. Okay, well, give me the Blog Talk, man, whatever you got. Give me the Blog Talk, whatever you have. Or something like that, and send me the link so I can download it, because 1.0, man, they're running roughshod. Well, they're trying to run roughshod, but things without any evidence. So if you got any clips that I need to hear, something vital, whatever you think is like your top 10, put it on Google Drive, man, so I can download it. Or, you know, if you need to put it on thumb drive, man, I send you a Cash App so you can mail it to me.
Now, here's the thing. BGS thinks that everybody has to prove something to him. Okay? You are not the gatekeeper of the space. The whole purpose of enumerating 1.0 versus 2.0 was to provide some grounding on the history of the space. It existed before you even got here. That's what Don Calypso is basically saying. Don Calypso is from 1.0. Okay, he's from Black Men Vent. The problem with people like you is that you feel, in the way you see things, is that somebody has to prove it to you. He doesn't have to prove anything. He doesn't have to ship you a USB drive or upload anything to a Google Drive or anything. He doesn't have to do all of that. Everybody knows who Thugtician is. Everybody knows who Soul and Black is. Everybody knows who Wacky Rotor O is. Everybody knows who Avenue Ranch was. Everybody knows who Pink Elephant is. Okay? You'll notice the people from 1.0, you never have them on your panels with you, but you talk about it as if it doesn't exist. So somebody has to prove something to you when the reality is the lived experience of those people is testimony that the space existed before. This is part of the problem with 2.0, which is why I enumerated it, because this type of behavior didn't exist in 1.0. We didn't have all these sort of problems. That came with 2.0. Okay. All this disorganization and, dick riding of other people who are not in the Black manosphere. That came with 2.0. That didn't come with 1.0. You didn't hear Sergeant Willie Pete riding somebody else's Johnson. Okay. You didn't hear Captain Solo or Soul in Black or Thug. That never happened before. Okay. We didn't ride other people's other content creators who are outside of the space. They're Johnsons, man. We didn't do things like that. You guys did things like that, do things like that. Okay. We don't do things like that. We don't hide behind other people's credentials to make content. We don't say we have PhDs. No, we create content first and then let you figure it out for yourself. Okay. And so what 2.0 is a disinformation caucus. Okay. It's a caucus of men who want to spread more misinformation in order to rationalize content creation. It's a content strategy, which is why the Black Brain Trust was born from it, because we did not align with any of these ideals. Okay. So some people can say, well, you guys came out of 2.0. Real in reality, we already had our own agenda. We weren't really aligned with anything that 2.0 was talking about. Okay. There's too much misinformation in the Black manosphere as we know it today. There's too much of it. It's impossible to go mainstream with misinformation. And if we can't agree on the history of the space, then we can't move forward. How can you move forward, into the mainstream if you can't even agree on the history of Black male social spaces? It's impossible. It's no different than the 1776 project that the Republicans are trying to run, where in reality, the 1619 project predates it by damn near 100 years. Not that Nicole Hannah-Jones created on her own. What I'm saying here is there was a history before 1776, which is what she's highlighting. In the manosphere, what we're highlighting is that there was a history before the big three allegedly even got here. There's this idea that nothing was here when I got here, but clearly there's, evidence that archives all around YouTube. I mean, I don't understand why this is so difficult for people to accept. Oh, the manosphere is having this big impact, but no one can ever provide the evidence that there's having this big impact. Case in point, Andrew Tate is this huge, phenomenon for some of these guys. Okay. They hold on to him as if he's a part of the space, but he's never been on anybody's panels, doesn't give anybody a shout out, and doesn't even acknowledge the space. But the people in this space will leverage his credibility as if he's somebody that, the manosphere should follow, but he's not even in the manosphere himself. That's a 2.0 thing. We didn't do things like that. You didn't hear about things like that in 1.0. That never happened. Okay. Austin Holloman, all these people that they gossip about are outside of the space. They don't exist within the space. Leveraging people's hashtags, SYSBM, passport bros, all these sort of things. You're not a part of their movement. So how can you, but I'm not surprised primarily because that's what they do. And I'm saying 1.0 didn't do things like that. The people who came before you didn't do things like that. That's all I'm saying. That was the whole purpose of enumerating the space, is so that people have some clarity on the history, so that you're not confused thinking that these guys who are here today are the quote unquote founding fathers. This is not true. The technology enabled you to have the voice that you have today. We didn't come out of we didn't come out of white MGTOW. That's not us. We were always in Black spaces. Okay, that's what 1.0 is about. The history of Black spaces, not the starting with live streaming and hangouts. That's not us. Okay, we existed when AOL had Black voices. We existed in the Yahoo Messenger Black spaces. Okay, we existed in the what do you call it? The MySpaces and whatnot, right? It's an amalgamation of different spaces in time, not just one piece. The documentaries that Tim Alexander and Jenks Morton and Al Grease and a lot of those guys were creating were self-funded. You didn't have people begging for money. That didn't exist in 1.0. That's why I enumerated the space. It's an amalgamation of different platforms within time. Unfortunately, we have people in here who want to spread misinformation as if, well, you need to prove to me that all of this existed. Well, who are you to begin with that any of this information needs to be submitted to you? You see, that's the difference between 1.0 and 2.0. 1.0 actually created a platform called Generation X. They at least made an attempt to create their own platform separate from YouTube. Okay, they at least made the attempt. What's happening in the manosphere right now is that the manosphere can only exist by leveraging other people's platforms. Not that that's bad, but what I'm saying here is you don't have the wherewithal to do it yourself. So you have to wait for somebody else to do it. We didn't do that in 1.0. That didn't happen. Okay, the documentaries that were created, self-funded. The Generation X platform, self-funded. The offline conversations, intimate. You don't have that in 2.0. That's why the conversations are always circular around people outside of the space and not people within the space and not productivity in action. Because it's all about spinning misinformation as much as possible in order to look for likes and views and shares and clicks, which is why they always run behind the idea of, well, this person has this many subscribers and this person gets this many views and this person gets this many super chats, but they can never tell you the tangibles that comes out of the conversations and the discourse itself because nobody's actually taking action. You think Edward Anderson? Let me say this. About 1.5 years ago, we invited Edward Anderson to come to the Black Brain Trust to talk about digital marketing. We ain't seen that nigga since. Okay, never came up here. Know why they ain't come up here? Because it's all a bunch of smoke. See, all this talk about 50% of my subs make $50,000 or more, or 80% of my subs make $80,000 or more. It's not that difficult to do that. Walmart, Target, McDonald's, Burger King, they're paying $25 an hour now. So yeah, you can make 50 G's if you work for any of these retail brands now. Want to make $80,000 or more? You can go work help desk and make, that kind of money. Not that difficult. So we don't ride on other people's credentials because that's just not who we are. And you'll notice that the content creators who came from 1.0, they're pretty consistent in that area. You don't really see code breakers really doing things like that, hiding behind other people's credentials. You don't really see the Black Brain Trust as an example, hiding behind other people's credentials. We just don't do that. Soul and Black, he makes his content, never hide behind anybody else's credentials. Sergeant Lee Pete, even though I don't agree with any of his content, he doesn't hide behind other people's credentials. He may bring up Captain Solo because that's his, BFF. That's his dude. But Captain Solo never did that even when he created content. Thugtician never relied on other people's credentials to create content. That's a 2.0 thing. That's why it had to be enumerated. There's certain things and behavior that is conducted in the space that is not consistent with, with what we know historically. We just don't do things like that. And so unfortunately, we have a lot of people in the space who are dick riding other people's credentials as a means to justify not acknowledging the history. I typically don't engage with them, but when I hear things like what Buddy just said, that's the problem I have with those guys over there, which is why I don't really spend a whole lot of time over there, because, how can you have a conversation when it's not grounded in truth, when it's not grounded in reality? I just can't do that. It would be a disservice from the Black Brain Trust to actually engage in that sort of misinformation campaign. I just can't do that. We can't do that. You don't see us trying to deny, whether or not Native Americans existed in this country. It's kind of stupid. And what do you really get out of it? All this slander about 1.0. It's like, there were people here before you. What's wrong with that? What's wrong with accepting that that was the case? Yeah, the Constitution didn't exist until 1776. Anything before that is a part of the history. It's just the truth. Well, I mean, what's the problem? And so that's what we're dealing with here. All this misinformation, all of this questioning of 1.0, and you got to show me some evidence. No, nobody has to show you anything. Nobody owes you anything. Nobody owes you anything. Don Calypso is a byproduct of 1.0. Asking him for evidence, I don't get it, man. I don't get some of these guys. It doesn't make any sense. It's just to me, I think it damages the credibility of the space, because a lot of these guys who are coming in are thinking that the space started with these folks, but in reality, there was something here before you. Okay. In fact, let me play this clip from my channel. Let me play this clip real quick. Let me see this real quick. Share my screen real quick. Push one in the chat if you can see the screen. All right. I got a confirmation. Let me play this clip real quick. Now, this brother on the screen, I forget his name now. His name slips my mind, but he existed back then. And I'm going to play this clip so that you understand what I'm saying.
You know, stating that he has, you know, a hard time finding a quality woman, and when he does find that quality woman, you know, they tend to drift apart, and they tend to go for other men, and you know, they just don't seem interested, is what he says to me. And he asks me if I think it's him, you know, and you know, as I read that email, I'm like, you know, it's, and I know I'm hard on women a lot, man. I'm hard on women a lot in my videos, and it may make me seem like I come across as being angry and bitter with women, and it's really not that. It's not that. It's the fact that a lot of them are very indecisive, man. A lot of females are very indecisive, and you know, a lot of them state they want something, you know, they want this, that, and the other in a male. They want certain qualities, but a lot of times those qualities are right in front of them, and they let them pass, man. A lot of females let the good guys pass, and this happens more in the black community than it does the white community, man. It does. It happens a lot in the black community because a lot of good males, and there's been hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of videos done on this from other black males on YouTube, so I don't think I really am the first one to state this, but a lot of good black males are not appreciated by black women. A lot of black women. A lot of black males who are all about good and all about positive and doing the right thing are just overlooked, man. And it's like it drives me crazy because a lot of white males are appreciated by white females, man. A lot of the good males are picked first, and a lot of white males are picked first by white females. That's who the females desire, man. They pick the white males first, the good white males first. You know, it's like the white males who are all about good and all about getting the education and being in school and having the nice house and the cars and all that. They're picked first, man. They're picked first, and it's like for a black male to be picked first by any woman, it's not just black women. By any woman, he has to have this superficial label to him, man. He has to be all about, you know, hustling and all about being on the streets and all about, you know, this superficial bling and jewelry and all this shit. And it's like that's why black males are having a hard time finding a quality woman. You know, and this individual that emailed me is somebody who I think high of, man. And this is a person who has great videos and has a lot of good to say. Just an overall intelligent guy, man. And when he emailed me and told me that he's having a hard time finding women, I'm like, I was surprised, because this is a good guy. But it's a likely story, man. It's a likely story, and it does piss me off because I have the same problem. You know, I have the same problem, you know. It's like the women that I attract a lot of times are, you know, not very quality women, and it could be a product of my environment. I don't know, man. I don't know, but it really does frustrate me, man. And the part that frustrates me the most is because a lot of the black men are thinking it's them. A lot of the black males are second guessing themselves and saying, you know, what's wrong with me? And it's like I told this individual dude, I said, look, I said, it's not you, man. It's not you. A lot of these females are indecisive. They say, oh, there's not enough good black men around. All black men are in prison. All black men have AIDS. All black men are down low and all this shit. And it's like that's not true. That's not true, man.
Now, I just want to pause this here. This TV is a cathode ray tube TV. This is CRT, okay? This video is from 2006. This is before live streaming. You couldn't live stream. It was impossible. That's why you had to do a pre-record and upload it. Okay. I forget what this brother's name is, man. You know, if anybody else knows, you know, let me know in the chat room. I remember vividly that what he's saying is about the, in this sentence is that, you know, the AIDS and the college dropout rate. Jenks Morton have recently done a documentary on this, and that's where he is getting his information from. Okay, that documentary came out in 2006. Okay, this video is from 2006, 2011, 2007. You can tell by the, you know, the background, you know, how old it is. It's very dated. And so when you say provide you evidence and all of it, it's not really necessary to provide you evidence, for one. And number two, this is one of the content creators back then. I'm having a senior moment remembering his name, but you know, he was around back then. I remember him vividly. Okay. And so let me stop sharing. I'm only highlighting this because I think that it's important that we, you know, we speak in context. He's not complaining, but what he's highlighting is that there was a growing conversation back then about the state of Black men in the community and in these relationships, okay? This is just one clip. It's not a long clip, it's just one clip. But there was many other conversations going on within the space. You had Junebug Obama, you had the Kobe MBA West, who was a social scientist. You had a variety of brothers in the space who were actually engaging in intellectual discourse. Okay, and this is how you responded to them, either through email or you attach your video to their video, and that would be your response. That was the difference between 1.0 and 2.0. These were the sort of conversations that you have. You didn't have a whole panel of people talking over each other and trying to bite each other's heads off and making, fart noises with their armpits. You didn't have all of that. Civil discourse. Okay, civil discourse. And if you couldn't act civil, then people just kind of tuned you out. They didn't respond to you. They didn't really engage you. And so you lost a lot of clout then, if you were trying to build it. So that's where we are right now. What you have in this space, man, are people who just want to lie in order to make content. You know, everybody has to prove something to them as if, they're the standard of content creation and conversation and whatnot for Black men. No, you're not. You're not. Black pill, blue pill, red pill, all that stuff came out of 2.0. Nobody was really using those terms back then. Okay. Before Wacky Word of Old, the original Old Man had the dreads, he had short hair back then. Old Man was 18 years old. He remembers this type of stuff that was going on back then. Okay. He remembers it. See, that's what I'm saying. Like, the people from 1.0 are never invited on the panel to discuss what 1.0 was and what in what the grounding of history is around it. But you always got somebody on the panel trying to argue whether or not 1.0 existed and provide me some evidence. Nigga, the people who are in 1.0 are here. What are you talking? Why don't you just invite them on the panel? But that would be too difficult, because then you can't chastise and try to manipulate the conversation to yourself. Okay. The link is in the chat. I'm only going to be up here for another 10 or 15 minutes, man. because I'm just so tired of the lies and the misinformation that goes out here. And it's like, damn, dude, like, it's not that difficult to understand that there were people here before you.
I mean, he's not trying to understand it though, Mike. That's the problem. Not trying to understand it.
Yeah.
And the other part is that the people who listen to him also are not trying to understand it as well. So you have two things that are happening there. You have a group of disaffected people who want to seem like they're up to speed. And the best way to be up to speed is by ignoring history. So what he does is he weaponizes that and then he redirects that. So now that you trust him on women, now you can trust his history on everything. And when you have disaffected men who've never been able to trust anybody, these this type of emotional support that he provides to his actual live stream garners the numbers to be able to lead these people in whatever direction that he wants, even if it's through misinformation. This is how come he can't go nowhere and actually debate anybody, because he got to have that rah-rah crowd. He got to have that stuff behind him. He got to have that. Dude, if you go on national TV and if you try to make those type of arguments, not only are they kicking you off the show, but they're coming after you and they're destroying every platform that you've ever built. Because people don't know the danger of this yet. Once they realize that this danger to these actual people is centered upon people who are deliberately doing this, that's what people are going after them. But the platform is not big enough yet. And a lot of these people think that going mainstream, no. Mainstream come with responsibility.
Right.
And they're like, oh, this type of stuff. I'm like, dude, or whoever. He didn't go on national platforms for a reason. And a lot of people banned him, KS from even going other places for reasons as well. But you got to understand that you don't want this thing to go mainstream. You don't want to be the leader or the face of this actual movement moving in this direction. You don't want that. A lot of people think that, oh, we have impact. There's an alimony bill in Florida. Wait a minute. Do you make enough money to where you can actually have a wife not work? If that's the case, then the manosphere wasn't responsible for that. And it came from a Republican who don't care about average, everyday working class men, but they do care about rich people. I have to keep repeating that to people. I'm like, oh, yes, where'd you hear that? Oh, well, I thought, no, dude, this is not having an impact. You having dogma to actually talk about rather than actual facts and things that you've actually done in your own time. That's something that's real impact. This wasn't here before. This is here now. That's impact. Impact isn't new things to complain about, and you don't live in a state where the things are changing that. But you haven't done any work in your own state to change anything, let alone take a side, let alone show up to vote. But you want to take advantage of every single thing that could potentially be weaponized as potential progress for you. It's like, man, this stuff is crazy, man.
Where this conversation started recently is on the code breakers when, DC was running down the history of 1.0 very quickly, just to correct the record. And so certain people took issue with it. I'm so tired of this 1.0 versus 2.0 thing. Well, how could you be tired of it?
Because you started the argument.
Yeah.
You started the argument. No one else started the argument. And here's the thing. It's not like this stuff happened in the 1800s. These people are still within the space today. Yeah. You can talk to a wacky world of O today. DC Codebreaker, obviously from 1.0, you're lying about his track record, trying to erase parts of his actual past today.
Yeah.
Man,
it
is just crazy.
But that passes as credibility in the space. The only way for you to make content is to, ignore the history. Nah. We can't move forward if we can't acknowledge what came before us. It's impossible.
And what is it to you to just admit there was something here before me? It's like when I made a live stream, I think 4 years ago when I first, maybe 5 years ago at this point, when I talked about lock them out, the wall of silence, they're like, I mean, it's logical where you're going, but that's not your stuff. That belonged to Q Soul and Black. And I'm like, Q Soul and Black, who's that? Then I had to look up who he was and start watching all his content. But it's like, even though I was right, I had to admit that that was not my concept that I came up with. Therefore, I stopped using it. And when I did use it, I had to shout out to the guy who actually did come up with the concept.
Yeah.
What was it to me to just keep acting like I came up with the concept because it's a natural way of progression? Like, why? What would it be for me to just to keep lying about whether or not I created it? It doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, I don't have a lack of integrity where I could just go around doing stuff like that. You know?
Right, because when the original people come back around, then you actually have to answer to, you know, those people, not necessarily from a financial perspective, but to the history itself. You can't just pretend as if, oh, these other people, they don't exist anymore. They're ancient or something like that. No, they're still around. They're still walking around, and they don't have to prove anything to you. That's the thing. Like in 1.0, you didn't have to prove anything. You didn't have to prove anything to anybody.
I mean, most of these truths were just self-evident because that's what was going on at the time. Like you didn't need statistics to actually talk about things that was actually happening.
Soul
at this point,
yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
No, Soul and Black was more than just he didn't just talk about women. Women was like maybe 10%, 20% of what he talked about. He was a very spiritual, religious person, or he is a very spiritual, religious person. When the downturn in 2008 happened, he was going through Baltimore and showing how to flip properties and how to get short sales and things like that. He did all of these sort of things in real time. It's not like, oh, he just, he kind of wrote it in the chat room. No, he actually showed you videos driving around Baltimore, flipping houses and stuff like that, renovating them. He talked about his military experience. He talked about fatherhood. There's a lot of things that this brother actually talked about. And he's one content creator. Okay. He's one content creator. Now you take into consideration Thugtician, who was a MRA, a men's rights activist, Kobe NBA West, a men's rights activist, social scientist. Okay. You had Pink Elephant, who was an actual teacher within the California school system. Okay. Who else? Captain Solo, a master electrician. You had what's the other brother? The brother of common sense and logic, Equazi, a master plumber and gas fitter and boilermaker. You had a lot of brothers in the space who were actually having very strong intellectual discourse, and it didn't remotely get into the back and forth like you see now. That's why I had to enumerate the space. What's going on, old man?
Hey, what's going on, Mike? How you doing?
Good, brother. Yourself?
I'm doing okay. I mean, okay, after people like myself, Soul and Black, and now you providing evidence of a generation of black male YouTubers existing before the 2.0 generation, are you telling me that this same person is still holding on to the lie or trying to make it seem as if 1.0 never existed?
Just said it earlier, about an hour ago. He said it an hour ago. Now I was blown away that he even said something like this. And Don Calypso, who's another Haitian brother, scientist, was a part of Black Men Vent and told BGS he doesn't have the 1.0 archive, but he can point him to the Blog Talk Radio stuff. First of all, I'm offended by even questioning Don Calypso on providing any evidence to him on a thumb drive. You're nobody of consequence that somebody has to send you a thumb drive of 1.0 content, a space that you said didn't even exist before. But then holding on to the moniker of 2.0. It's I don't get it. It doesn't make any sense. The math isn't math. Ain't math. Go ahead.
Yeah, so what it is an ego issue with this individual, because this individual wants to have this reputation of being the chief, of being the master. Thus, a lot of people call him master teacher with which I guess caters to his ego. He wants to be the one to, he wants to be known as the innovator that innovated everything in this space, when the reality is he's not. And that hurts his ego. That's what I believe it is with this person not admitting that there was a generation of Black male content creators before him speaking about similar topics. You know?
Yeah.
So it's his ego. And when people prove him wrong, it hurts his ego even more. I remember there was a video that he made where he admitted that he doesn't like to be wrong. You know, he utilizes zodiac signs, quote, you know, for those who believe in the zodiac. I don't believe it, but he utilizes zodiac sign as an excuse to admit how he doesn't like to be wrong. He said, I'm a Gemini. You know, Geminis, we don't like to be wrong. So thus, he admit that he hates being wrong. So
I didn't know he said that.
Yeah. So, you know, once you prove him wrong on something, he's still going to stick to the lie that he believes in, because he doesn't like to be proven wrong.
Unbelievable. I don't, you know, and you know, this isn't a personal beef with him. It's more about correcting the record, man. I just don't like misinformation being, you know, being spread to people who don't know any better. They don't know that there was something here before them. They don't know that Fucktician was here. They don't, you know, you didn't have all of this ADOS and FBA stuff going on. That didn't exist.
No, it didn't exist. No.
That didn't exist. That's why I ask a lot of these guys, okay, so where did you get that from? What does that mean? What does that mean when you put those letters next to your name? What does that mean? Oh man, I'm a descendant of slaves. Nobody ever used that term before to identify themselves. Where is this coming from? And so I think that there's a lot of people who are invested into the, you know, Ready Player One mindset of the manosphere, where they exist in this sort of alternate universe where likes, shares, and views, and you know, YouTube analytics and Google analytics and search engine optimization, they live in this type of stuff and they try to leverage it for their own credibility. And I always have to ask them, you know, cat videos make, you know, get 1 million views too. You know, does that mean that, you know, that it's a credible source for information? I don't know. It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but that's where a lot of these guys are. And so when these guys talk about going mainstream and trying to do this and trying to do that, you're not going anywhere unless you can stand on any truth. And the truth of the matter here is that there was a space that existed before you. You have to accept that before moving forward.
Exactly. And it's funny how these individuals will speak about going mainstream when one of the supposed progenitors of Black Manosphere 2.0 was caught in a contradiction when I just asked him 3 questions. So I'm saying, and me, I'm just a regular individual. So if a regular individual like me can give you a mock interview and lead you into a contradiction after asking just 3 questions, what do you think a person within, or a journalist within the mainstream media is going to do to you? You know, but but going back to your point, Mike, yes, you have to admit that there was a generation that came before you. You have to, especially when the proof still exists. I mean, what is it with this thing with people that want to rewrite history? I know I'm only asking a rhetorical question, but I don't know, man. It's something wrong with a lot of so-called Black people. I mean, well, I won't say that, because of course you have people of other races who like to rewrite history too. I can't say it's just a Black thing, but I don't know, man. It's something that's plain and in your face when it comes to a prior generation of Black male content creators existing before this generation. It's evident, it's in their face, right? And you have people like myself and you that's still around. Solon Black is still around. He's on Rumble. Mr. Research, you know, formerly known as Alpha Male Wisdom, is still around. I mean, we're still around.
Yep. I forgot about Mr. Research. Shout out to Mr. Research. He was around. It's funny because they identify like Tommy as being like this sort of progenitor of 1.0, but then they don't acknowledge 1.0. But then they don't really understand that Tommy was never part of 1.0. He's a part of Black YouTube at the time. And so, a lot of people can use to satellite male spaces, the Black male spaces. And there's nothing wrong with that. That happens all the time. It's kind of like, Black Enterprise covering, tech or something like that. They're a business magazine, but a Black business magazine, but they also can cover a variety of things too. I think it's important that people understand that Tommy Sotomayor did not come out of Manosphere 1.0. He came out of Black YouTube. There was a section of Black YouTube. There was Black YouTube, and then there was a section where you had a Black male social space called the BMCC, Black Male Conscious Collective, as if there was a moniker applied to it. Now, I only call it 1.0 because I'm enumerating the space. I'm not saying that there was a quote unquote Black manosphere. I'm saying that there was something here before you that consisted of Black men engaging in intellectual discourse. To pretend as if that didn't happen is a disservice to the people within the space and in the history of other Black men too. Jakes Morton was in the space. You had a variety of other content creators. Tim Alexander was in the space. Tommy Curry was in the space before he got his PhD. It's just really strange that people want to deny that any of these things even happen. There's so many people I'm leaving out, and I feel bad that I'm leaving them out. Dredson was another one. Dark One Sun was another one. Philly 215. There's so many people that were in the space, man. Just like, how can you pretend like these people didn't exist? Mr. Legend from Black Men Vent, Rick Scorpio. It's just so many people, bro. It's like, come on, man, cut it out.
So many people, a whole consortium of Black male content creators at the time.
You guys bring it up, Wacky and Mike. You guys were around, Wacky. I remember you back in the day. You remember even people like Jason Black or Professor Truth or whatever. He was back around during those days. You remember that?
Yeah, Calvary is here actually battled him video for video because they tried to go in on him because one, he was married to a white woman.
That's right.
And two, he told this story about how he lived in Chicago and he had a roach infested apartment. And they tried to go in on him, but Calvary is here. Calvin was lethal with the pushback. A lot of people think that this quote unquote educated lame, guys who went through the academy and came out, not as adept to the culture. Calvary destroyed what's his name? Professor Black Truth, that's his name?
Yeah.
The Black Authority. The one that had the Black Panther as his
Jason Black.
Jason Black. Yeah, he destroyed him.
Yeah.
He destroyed him and didn't have to disrespect him or anything. Just straight destroyed him in the debate. That's the sort of discourse that went on back then. But see, that's what happens when you try to attack people unjustly, for their choices in women and the spouse and whatnot. To my knowledge, Jason Black had never been married. I don't know. I don't really care. But to attack brothers for their choice in women didn't make a whole lot of sense. Guys were traveling back then before there was a such thing as a passport, bro, or a hashtag. That's what I'm saying. Like, there's a whole history before these hangouts. There's a whole history behind this.
And that's the whole point. None of this is really new. Wacky World knows this. I know it. You know it. Other brothers here know it. None of this is really new. What was new was the platforms. That was about it. But a lot of what was being talked about was being talked about then. Just the platforms were not as big and not as broad just because of what YouTube did. Yep. So, and then not speaking about the past like these guys came in and created is absurd. And it's an insult to those who came before. All right. I'll give it to guys like O'Shea, who understood this. You don't see O'Shea Duke, wherever he's gone now. You don't see him out. However people feel about him, that's their own business. But you don't see him out here talking about, oh, you know, we started all of this, and you know, we call ourselves this, but we were the only ones who started this. He don't claim that. Guys like him don't claim that. They know they was something a lot bigger before they came in here. When I say bigger, as far as the 1.0 guys, they laid so much of some of the key talking points that you want to call yourself manosphere, what they laid down. Then to where, you know, guys basically, as you said, Mike, very eloquently broke it down as to how these people have been kind of, you know, running off of those vapors ever since, and taking a lot of that, taking those talking points and now trying to claim it as it's theirs, they created, is ridiculous. Somebody like a BGS or SBG or whatever he is, that guy is nothing more than a second, than 2.0. He came about, he was a Johnny come lately. He came after. That's what he is. Not, you know, you can't break on anybody and say, oh, you came after and you're the worst. No, but you came after. They came first, and there was a whole history laid down before that. And then when people have laid that history down and showed you, you try to deny it. That's where the real issues are. Why are we still talking about it? Because guys like him have tried to deny it. And we're just going to keep the record straight, and keep building off of a lot of that, because that's very important that we have to do if we want to keep this thing if you're manosphere, we want to stick to those principles as well. I'm just going to leave it at that.
You know who AM? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Oh man.
Oh, okay. I'll just be real quick. And one thing is that a lot of these Johnny come latelys, right, within the viewing audience, they have this assumption, because since this space is called the Black Manosphere, they believe that this space came from what we call the quote unquote white manosphere, right? And I always have to let people know that this actual space existed organically and was founded organically by Black males themselves. Okay,
Excellent point.
Excellent point. The name, the current label that we use to label this space may have come from, well, actually did come from the quote unquote white manosphere, but the actual online community itself did not come from the quote unquote white manosphere. It started organically by Black male content creators themselves, who were for the most part pro-Black. Okay.
Excellent.
So I want to let it be known for all the members of the viewing audience and content creators alike who came into this space after 2015, assuming that this space is a byproduct of the white manosphere, which is not true.
That is such a key point that has to be highlighted. I know that I was going to, not that I was going to say something like that. I didn't say it. I wish I did, but that's exactly what the real deal is on that. You can't lose sight of that, because this did not emerge from the white manosphere. It did not. And it was organically grown by brothers, for brothers. That's where guys like Soul and Black, that's where Thug Titian and those Wacky World of Bowen, that's where these guys came from. That point has to be made. Excellent point. Can't forget that. That has to be highlighted consistently, because some people have a talk and are trying to run with it like this is a slightly different idea to that, and that's exactly the correct way to define that. Great point, Wacky. Great point.
Thank you, no doubt. Thank you, no doubt.
You know, I wanted to bring up something real quick, because AM1 is a content creator in the space, and he gets a lot of flack. But if you go back into 1.0, there was a brother by the name of Comic Genius. Impeccable brother with the content creation. He can rap, he can make videos, and I mean like real Adobe Premiere videos. Like his content was on a different level. And he was down for the brothers. He was about the space. He is back then what AM1 is today. I think that AM1 doesn't get a lot of credit for his skill set in the space. I haven't seen anybody with his skill set in photography and anything like that. I mean, I know there's some people who can shoot cameras and stuff, but I haven't seen anybody really match up what AM1 does. But AM1 skill set and productivity and talk like that, you can go back into 1.0 and find Comic Genius being that guy. Comic Genius was a impeccable content creator back then. And people don't really know that these people existed. Okay. And he would do the work for free. If he wasn't charging anybody, he would do it for free. But he went into the mainstream, man. He took off and went into somewhere else, man. And so I just wanted to highlight that you can see similarities in content creators today with content creators back then. Not to diminish anything AM1 has done, but I'm just saying that you can match, like, for example, Taz as a content creator and a character within the space, a caricature within the space. You can go back to Manosphere 1.0 and find Stylistic being the same exact guy.
Yes. Great comparison.
Same exact guy, and there's no disrespect to Taz. He's good with the Black Brain Trust, but I'm saying that people think that Taz is some kind of an anomaly, and I'm saying no. There was space for brothers like him back then too. There was space for brothers like him too. You didn't really have the flagging of the channels came from women. Okay, it didn't come from men. It came from women, and so that's why you don't see a lot of the content here, because no one really understood how to get your content back. Once it was gone, it was gone. It was liquidated. And so that's why you saw a lot of brothers go to Generation X, because Dredson had created the platform to avoid having that problem ever happen again. And so I've talked about this before. I just want to highlight it again within 30 seconds that Dredson had built this platform called Generation X that was very similar to YouTube, where Black men could actually upload their content and not be flagged down. But what the Bedwinches ended up doing was they partnered up with the white manosphere to launch cybersecurity attacks, DDoS attacks against the server, and it took the server down, and a lot of people lost their content, and that was the end of it. And so people just kind of moved on. They weren't wedded to YouTube. They were not wedded to coming on here every single day and engaging with back and forth with women. That was never the modus operandi. Okay. Now, that's why when Buddy asked for you got to provide me some content on a USB thumb drive. No, nobody has to do all of that. Nobody has to do that. That's not necessary. You just need to know that something existed before you, and the people that were there can testify to it.
But Mike, I think the key point that this guy was trying to make is saying that, well, all those flaggers who flagged him destroyed 1.0, erased all that they had, so therefore they lost, and they weren't significant. That's his point. That's the point he's trying.
Oh, they were cowards, they didn't fight back. And it's like, nah, that's not necessarily true, man. Like, people came in with their own bag. They weren't trying to get the bag off of YouTube. You don't even understand that. You don't even understand that. People had their own bag before they came in here. They didn't rely on, super chats and stuff like that. I remember Netta being around at that time. Now, not to say that he was a part of Black Manosphere 1.0, but he was a frequent flyer within the space. It's not uncommon you would see him 1 or 2 times in a week, floating through different videos and comment sections and stuff like that. Then you got sexy sci-fi. Women existed in the space.
Yeah.
Contrary to popular belief, women existed in the space.
Yeah.
Yeah,
they did. They were big part. They were actually a fairly big part of it.
Yeah.
And a lot of people. Well, if you were around then, you would have seen a lot of the debates, and how some sisters were kind of siding up with brothers as well. So that there was nothing new from there either. But it was there's been a lot of misinformation as to what the past was. We know who the misinformation merchants are, but that's why they push a lot of that misinfo. We always have to keep the record straight and continue to press forward with a lot of this, because these guys have grabbed a hold of a lot of this and are trying to move us in a whole other direction where this thing really wasn't really designed to really go. So let's just keep that let's just keep that up. Wacky World of O is sitting right here. This is a 1.0 man from those days for sure. So to say these guys were beaten down and destroyed, they're still here. What are you talking about?
Exactly.
They're still here. Some brothers have moved on to other areas. Some brothers, unfortunately, have passed on and have made that transition. It is what it is. You have the factors of life that go on, but you still have a number of brothers that are still here, that have not gone anywhere, that are not gone. They're not around anymore. What?
Yeah.
Insane.
And as they should, listen, for the many brothers who from 1.0 who moved forward, who left and moved forward with their lives, they did what they should have done, as they should. It's not okay. I think Mike pointed this out earlier. Like the content creators from 1.0 was not looking forward to be online celebrities and looking to trying to get rich off of being a content creator. We came on here, right, because we had a message to share to the world, and a lot of brothers and sisters decided after a certain amount of time to move forward with their lives, as they should. I mean, the thing is, and I don't get how people think that those who decide to move forward with their lives is a sign of being destroyed. I don't get how people would think that, but in a way I do, because people who say that with their mindset, they have nothing else going for themselves but YouTube, which was not the case with the overall majority of content creators from 1.0. We had a life and still do.
People weren't making a living at it. People weren't making a living at it. Some brothers died. Let's admit it. Some brothers did pass away as well.
Yes.
So we've had all the cycles of life happen since then. We're going back 15 years, 14, 15. We're going back a ways. We're going back some years. We are going back. We are going back. Damn it to the almost beginnings of YouTube itself. So we have to sit down and look at, there has been time passage, a lot of things that have gone on, but yet to sit here and say that 1.0, I'm tired of the 1.0, a bunch of scams is coming up in here and Johnny come latelys and misinformation wants rolling through, talking about that master teachers, what are you, master teacher or Lord of the Flies? What are you? You can't be both. Yeah. So let's keep it a buck. And we got to keep the truth to it. I'm done on this, but I'm just glad that this is being cleared up. Mike, I salute you, man. A wacky world. You've been around since day one. I'm just, this is where it's at. This is the truth session.
The clip I played earlier in the going was from 2006, 2007. It had to be from that time because I looked at the background and stuff. I said, oh, that's a that TV is not a flat screen TV. That's definitely pre-flat screens. That was before that even became popular. And so you had to have a powerful computer to really engage in content and stuff like that, because it took a long time to render a video. It took a long time. And so, Yeah. And so Floyd Holt in the chat room says, hold up, the BWs teamed up with white men and destroyed a bunch of 1.0 creators. Not the BWs, but the swirlers, okay? The swirlers. There was a group of women. Blake Barbie doll was one of them, and quite a few of them. What's the sister, man, from Atlanta? ATL sister, okay? She was another one of them who despised a lot of brothers in the space.
Not the statuesque one.
No. Her name is ATL sister. That's her name, okay. ATL sister. Right. She's from Atlanta. But there was quite a few of those women on that side who had collaborated with some of these white manosphere guys.
Egypt Ann was one of them. I'm telling you, her too. She was there.
Now, there was a white man who was sleeping with a lot of black women in the space. in these swirler spaces, and he did a video, and he was in bed with her.
I remember him. I remember him.
Yeah, I can't remember his name, man.
What is his name?
I can't remember his name, man. He was trying to rub, he was trying to wash his, ball wash in front of the brothers, and brothers like, man, we ain't even studying those chicks, man. You could have them, them bed witches over there. You could have them, man. Them chicks, look tore up from the floor, man. I don't think cats was really sweating them like that. The baddies, man, the baddies were in the conscious community. That's what all the bad chicks were. All the look good in the face, nice body and stuff like that. They came out of the conscious community. They didn't come out of the swirl community. Swirl community was is a different animal within itself. Those were women who had a lot more problems than what a lot of brothers were willing to deal with, especially Ruth Lynn. Very famous story. Let me give you the backstory real quick. A Black woman who was married to a white man who was in the military, was a swirler from Boston, and she had did these videos in response to Sergeant Willie Pete, because Sergeant Willie Pete was calling out a lot of the swirlers on their on their contradictions of masculinity and femininity and the Black family and whatnot. And so this woman took offense to it and did some videos taking jabs at Sergeant Willie Pete, and come to find out, this white guy that she was dating, or she was married to, he was taking out her weave and her, he was doing all this really questionable things that if a Black man did it, there's certain labels that start with an F that, will be applied to him. Come to find out that the swirl community came out and was like, yo, I messed with this guy behind the scenes. That completely destroyed her marriage. All these women, all these swirlers came out and basically blew the whistle and was like, yo, I used to mess with this dude. And so her marriage went out the window and so on and so forth. And her channel got shut down, or so she shut her channel down and, divorced this dude. And, and I think she just kind of moved on to another like an Indian dude or something like that. But the point of the matter here is this: that's the sort of history that predates this space. Like, that's the sort of stuff that was going on back then. And so that's what Black men were up against, up against these sort of people who could not handle the idea of Black male agency, the ability for Black men to think and speak for themselves and actually have the audacity to upload content to identify and highlight, their place within society, their grievances. And so that's what Black men were battling against back then. They weren't necessarily going back and forth. They were just actually, uploading their own content.
Correct, because most of their sexual stuff was based on you not having a voice.
Right.
And you have to understand that if they become accustomed to you not having a voice, then all of a sudden you have one. Everything that you say would actually damage the self-esteem of wherever they're going. Because if you have choice and you're definitely not going to choose them, they don't care about your voice. It's kind of like, Black people after the Civil War. Like, they were not interested in you voting at all, because you wasn't going to vote for them. So why would they care about you voting? So it's like, that's the way it is at a certain point. But when you don't take any action and the only thing you do is complain, from that point, that's when they become, utterly just dangerous.
Yep. Yeah. So, I just wanted to make sure I highlighted, use this open chat for this reason of addressing this constant badgering of what 1.0 was and what it is and what it ain't. And, I'm just so sick and tired of the misinformation being put out there as if it didn't exist, and then asking for receipts. These guys never provide receipts to anything that they're talking about, anything. And so, closing thoughts from you two?
Yeah, Black women coming back to the table. Nobody asked for receipts. Black women are at the table. Nobody asked for receipts of that either. Black boys being helped by Nick Fuentes and Pearly Things. No receipts are needed for that. But legitimate dudes always have to provide receipts. Bullshit artists can just be bullshit artists for bullshit sake.
Incredible.
I don't know how you can even help people like that. I think it's better just to have an organization go to these actual communities and neighborhoods and just start helping people that way. and raise the actual awareness that you have these loser ass dudes online, because you have to bring the institutions in to come clean this dude out. Because if you think you can comport yourself like you comport yourself with Lucas on a national TV screen, dude, you are highly mistaken. You're not gonna be able to get that stuff off like that. So thanks for having me on, Mike.
Nagon, do you have any last thoughts?
Oh no, I don't. Mike, I think you covered this beautifully. You, brother O, MOT, you guys came here. You guys cleared this just right, and I appreciate. Thank you for having me up, and awesome job.
All right. All right, thank you all for joining us. Please hit the like button on the way out. Share the video if possible and hit that notification bell so you get all the updates from the Black Brain Trust.